Hey, welcome back, everyone, for hour number 2 of TalkBack here on this Monday morning. I'm Al Quartermont along with Trish LaLog. Glad you could be with us. Hope you had a great weekend and are looking forward to a great week. It's going to be a little colder by the middle of the week for sure, so you might have to use that heater in the home. And, of course, we know that costs us money to run, and we'll see how much that's going to cost us this winter. Speaking of energy and that topic, the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association advocates for the oil and gas industry here in Louisiana. President of that organization is Mr. Mike Moncla. He joins us on the phone this morning. Good morning, sir. Good to have you on the show again.
Yeah, I really appreciate you having me.
Absolutely. So as we get ready for these winter months, what are you guys keeping your eyes on as far as the oil and gas supply and how that might relate to the winter heating?
You know, that's such a global topic. You know, our focus is really here in the state and you know, producing oil and gas, you know, in the fields of Louisiana. You know, if I had a crystal ball for global supply and demand and what OPEC's going to do, I mean, you know, I'd be a billionaire, but I got a long way to go to get to that. So, you know, I don't know. I mean, it just kind of depends on supply and demand, and we're not, you know, at the mercy of choosing how that goes.
For sure. So what are the main things you guys are looking at or working on right now in terms of the state's oil and gas production?
Well, I mean, you know, we've got really almost 4 categories that, you know, we look at. And the first category is up there in y'all's neighborhood. We've got the Haynesville Shale. It's the best thing going in Louisiana. There's about 70 rigs running up there right now, and 45 of them are on the Louisiana side. We have had regulations up there for noise and dust and those kind of things that have been in existence for about since it started, 2008. That, you know, LOGA was influential in getting into place with parish officials at that time, and we're working with parish officials again on updating those as some of the neighborhoods have gotten closer to wells, or vice versa, wells have gotten closer to neighborhoods. And so we're working with you know, your parish attorney and some administrators, and they've been very good to work with, and we're hoping to come up with a solution in the coming weeks. So that's North Louisiana. And then, you know, in South Louisiana, we don't have a shale play. So we have really taken a beating in South Louisiana. We don't have the number of rigs working that we had. You know, we had almost, you know, 40 rigs in South Louisiana just, you know, 10 years ago. And today we've got 8. And that's land and barge. And I guess what really is ugly is the barge market. So we separate that out as well. And, you know, coastal erosion lawsuits have really taken a toll on investment dollars in South Louisiana. Anyone that, you know, files for a dredge to drill a well in inland waters gets, you know, lumped into a coastal erosion lawsuit. So it's very difficult for us to get investment back into that market. There's one barge rig running in the state. Wow. And then, of course, we've got the offshore market, and that's the Gulf of Mexico, and we've got an administration that has been fighting tooth and nail with us, you know, canceling that first lease sale of his presidency, lease sale 257. It looks like he's going to, due to some compromises made in his Inflation Reduction Act, we've been able to compromise, and he's going to reinstate 257. And, you know, there's a possibility of having anywhere from 0 to 11 lease sales in the coming years. So we're trying to nail him down with some of the national lobbyist firms to, you know, give us a number. We need, you know, a much more concrete schedule than anywhere from 0 to 11. So those are kind of the 4, you know, categories of Louisiana: Haynesville, South Louisiana, barge, and offshore.
Yeah, and even, you know, as it goes up here, and you're talking about the Haynesville, I think that's something that people don't realize, because you've actually got some new land permitting that's happening with that, right?
Well, there's always, you know, companies are investing in new leases and exploring new areas. So sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Good news for up there, but those numbers you're talking about in South Louisiana, I mean, yeah, those are drastic numbers right there.
Oh, it's horrible. My family business is in the rig business, so I can attest to how bad it has been.
We're talking with Mike Moncla from the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. We do have a call coming in. Let's go ahead and take that. Good morning. You're on TalkBack.
Hey, good morning, Mr. Moncla. Thank you for taking my call. The Republicans have been too embarrassed to call the Democrats on their climate crisis rhetoric. And so now they've gone whole hog into converting to electricity, into what they call clean energy, even though we know it's not clean. Even if the Republicans take back control of Congress in the midterms, the investment capital required for oil production is so high. And a lot of these companies, 4 years from now or 2 years from now, it could be reversed again and they could have the rug pulled out from under them. So what can we do to call investment money back in? Building refineries, we're at refinery capacity, and to build another refinery costs so much, and it's 10 years before you get any, if you get any profit from it. So with the Democrats pushing so hard to converting now, how do you convince people to invest in long-term oil production, fossil fuel production, when those common sense people among us know that that's what we're going to be using for the foreseeable future? Thank you. I'll hang up and listen to you.
Thank you for the call.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that it's. I think that the tail is in the tape, right? I think you're seeing energy prices rise as everyone is trying to, switch to this, transition and renewable energies, and I just don't think that is going to pan out very well for the general public in their pocketbooks. So I think oil and gas is going to be here for a very long time. I did a talk in Shreveport last week. We call it our state of the industry. And I showed where there's some charts that are from the International Energy Agency. That's the IEA, which is a very liberal-leaning agency based out of France. And, it shows that, currently we're at 54% oil and gas and 27% coal. So altogether, 81% of the world's consumption is coming from fossil fuels. And then you fast forward to that same liberal agency, and it shows that in the year 2040, they predict that the oil and gas goes from 54% down to 45%. So we lose 9% in the next 20 years. Seems like it's a pretty big number that we're losing, but here's the fine print. In the next 20 years, the population of the world grows from 7.5 billion to 10 billion. So when the pie gets that much bigger, that 45% needed for consumption in the year 2040 is more oil and gas produced today, then than we are today. So, there's some fine print that you got to look through. But no, we're going to need more oil and gas in 20 years than we do today. There's no question about that. And the other thing is the byproduct side that people don't even want to talk about. Where are they going to get the plastics? Where are we going to get the pharmaceuticals? The 97% of pharmaceuticals are made in petrochem. How are people going to get well? How are we going to grow crops when fertilizers are made from natural gas? Look, and y'all are right in the middle of it. The Haynesville Shale is the number 3 natural gas producing area in the United States, but due to its proximity to Cameron, Louisiana, where we've got pipelines taking it straight from Haynesville into these LNG facilities, that the Shreveport area is providing the world energy right now. It's something we should really tip our hat at. We should be proud of that.
Yeah, that's for sure. I don't think people realize that so much. But, like you said, that's kind of the head-scratching part of all of this. What is going to happen to all of these products and all of these things that we rely on this for, and what can we do about that?
There's not much we can do. They want to go backwards. The other way of thinking is go back to prehistoric age. It's beyond me. I don't understand it. They don't have a viable way out when they talk about the electric car. What are you going to do without tires? Mm-hmm. What are you going to do without the console? What do you do without all those plastic coating, in that battery? There's so much involved. You can't even paint a car. The paint is oil field product. Everything on that car is oil and gas. So it's going to be a very difficult, solution for that other side.
I mean, obviously, a lot of this is being sold because of the mentality or the political position as far as climate change and all of that, and how supposedly oil and gas contribute to that with carbon and everything. But, I mean, you're making some great points, and it just shows it's not really being well thought out, the overall impact and what the oil and gas industry contributes to almost every phase of our life, that if all of a sudden, boom, tomorrow that was gone, how dramatically different it would be. So what will be the successful formula, or is there one, to get, kind of the powers that be in Washington to really understand this without making it always just political?
Yeah, I don't know. To me, it seems like it's almost become a religion for them, and it's something they really believe in. And you think back when Al Gore first introduced this, 20-something years ago?
Yeah.
I mean, it was a joke.
Yeah.
And now you got half the world bought into it. So, look, we can all do better with emissions. We can do better with all that. And guess what? The United States has. Mm-hmm. We have decreased emissions more than any other country, and we've made refineries into natural gas where it burns a lot cleaner. We've done all kinds of things to get better. We've made cars better. We've made the emissions on the cars. I mean, there's a lot of things. I mean, these even hybrid cars. Those are fantastic ideas. I wouldn't want to have an electric car, especially living in hurricane territory.
Right.
But yeah, the oil and gas industry is very resourceful. I mean, the technology is incredible, and we're going to continue to improve on things that we do.
And we're talking with Mike Moncla from the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. I know that you wrote an op-ed that ran in several newspapers a couple weeks ago talking about carbon capture. So we're talking about all of this with carbon and the impact on the climate, supposedly, and all that. So explain more what carbon capture is and why you seem to think it's a good thing.
Well, look, half the world has bought into it, and our government has now regulations in place that companies that are going to do work in the United States, if they don't abide by it, they're not going to either, you can't get a bank loan, or you're not going to, you'll be taxed with the carbon footprint. So with those two things in mind, I got to represent the oil and gas companies and the oil and gas service companies of Louisiana. And we've been sitting on our hands for 7 years. Up in the Haynesville, you guys don't know how bad it is. South Louisiana, you just heard me tell you how bad it is. I would love to put our service companies back to work. We've got, viable candidates sitting at their house that if there's some carbon capture projects, I would love to put them on. Now, do I believe in all of that stuff as far as, the ESG? No, I'm not all for that stuff. It's killing my family business. I can't get a loan to build more rigs or hire more people because of the banks are too top heavy on oil and gas, and their ESG score is at such a number that if they go over it, they get regulated. So it's difficult. You can't get a loan right now if you're in oil and gas. So I'm not for this at all. But as far as carbon capture, look, they've been storing gas and oil under the ground for 50 years. We're not talking about storing it in the water table. We're going 7,000 feet. And, anything that, like I said a while ago, we've done hybrid cars. We've made plants go from coal to natural gas. This is just one more step in a process of getting better and better with our technology. And, if it saves carbon from going into the air, hey, I'm good with that. I mean, anytime we can improve, that's fine. Do I think that is what is causing the alleged global warming? No, I don't believe that. But, hey, this is the world that we're in. Mm-hmm. And if we can continue to get better, then I'm all for it.
All right, we're talking with Mike Moncla from the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. Mike, can we keep you for another segment after we take a break?
Sure.
Okay, we'll take a break and come back with more of the Mike here on Talk. All right, welcome back, everyone, here on TalkBack on this Monday morning. We're having a conversation with Mike Moncla, president of the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. And Mike, we were kind of before we went to the break, we were talking a little bit about this whole concept of carbon capture, and you were saying it's kind of an education issue in terms of a couple of communities that don't want to do it. So maybe you go a little bit more in depth on that.
Yeah, I think that people just are generally, have concerns, and we've done a poor job of relaying the education needed to give them some comfort. We're not talking about, putting carbon at, 100 feet down. This is going to be 7,000, 8,000. You never know what depth that the EPA, which is federal, not even state, that the EPA will tell you have to go down to pump it down. We've been doing this for 50 years. Like I said, I mean, we've been storing natural gas, we've been storing oil. There are plants along the Mississippi River that store all kinds of things. So this is not something new, and it just the public just doesn't understand that. But it is no different than if the city comes in and wants to run conduit in your front yard to get natural gas to the neighborhood. It's the same thing. I mean, that natural gas line could bust too. In fact, we busted one with a backhoe when we were doing because it was wrongly marked when we were doing an addition to my house. So those things can happen. Look, it's a big subject that is very difficult to understand, and so I don't blame parishes that don't understand it. They just need some education. Mm-hmm.
And that's part of what you guys do with the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association.
That's what we're trying. Yes, absolutely.
Another thing I want to ask you about, I guess it was a few weeks ago now, that our state treasurer, John Schroeder, announced that he was going to divest Louisiana's assets from BlackRock over their ESG policies. Can I get your reaction to that?
I thought that was great. I'm happy John did that. That was he joined suit with several other oil and gas states, and I love it. I mean, these big companies come in here and they're preaching their ESG numbers and anti-fossil fuels when all they do all day long is enjoy fossil fuels. And so the hypocrisy is just overwhelming to me. So, no, I loved it. I thought it was great. Wish there was more of it.
Yeah, and maybe something other states will start to jump in on. We can hope. Let's take another call. Good morning. You're on TalkBack.
They better jump in on it. We've been seeing the king walk around naked and priding himself on his new clothes for so long. When you look at them, they create a problem. Think of this. We don't want to have these forests cut down. Well, they didn't exist. We started growing these forests because it was a renewable energy source. So we changed from paper bags, so on, to all this plastic stuff. So now they have a problem they've created, and they're here to fix it. When are we going to wake up?
Sure.
Al, it makes me think of something. How easy it is. If anybody's familiar with the garden, it was a guy in a snake suit, we call him the devil, who came to people in an idyllic situation and said, has God said, no proof, no anything, but he stirred them up. Right. And it continues, if it's COVID, if it's CO2, whatever. But thank you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Yep, thank you for the call. More of a comment than a question?
I was going to say, not much of a question, but...
It was interesting, though. It kind of jogged my memory of just last night. Football game ended and 60 Minutes came on. Not sure if y'all saw, but I walked out of the room and came back in, and there was a segment on wind, energy, offshore wind in Europe, in Britain somewhere. I'm trying to remember where it was, but anyway, huge, it's the largest wind farm in the world, and they talked about how great it was, and they showed one of the workers having to go work on it, which if we get some in Louisiana, we'll have oil field workers doing that stuff. So we're not against wind. We think it's going to take all kinds of energy to make this world go around when we have 10 billion people on it. So we're not against it. But when at the end of the segment, they interviewed 2 locals that live there, and their electricity bill has doubled. So, they preached to them that it was going to be renewable and cheaper, and their bills have now doubled. So,
wow.
Again, Haynesville to the rescue. So we'll continue to produce natural gas, convert it to LNG, and have the back of our friendly neighbors in Europe.
Yeah, that was Grimsby, England, where that's located.
That's right. That's right.
All right, let's take another call. Good morning. You're on with Mike Moncla. Hello? All right. Guess we don't have that one. Let's try another one. Good morning. You're on with Mike Moncla.
Oh, good morning. I want to just comment about the carbon and all this business about misidentification or hype. Carbon, whenever the folks with poor understanding of stuff keep calling stuff carbon, it's CO2. CO2 is necessary. And we've got this backwards kind of juggernaut going to eliminate CO2. And even to the point of such proportions that you eliminate the necessary stuff for life. Life cannot exist without CO2. And it's so sad to see the more or less important people and decision makers and stuff be so ill-informed and carrying forward the circumstances that are contrary to life, for goodness sakes. And anyway, I just thought I'd throw that in because it's sad to see people equating carbon, which is the language. It gives off this idea of poor, or rather negative characteristics of soot and everything of this sort. And hell, it's necessary for life, and more of it is beneficial. Thank you.
All right, thank you for the call. Mike, you want to respond to that?
Couldn't agree more.
So, okay. Well, again, when you call in, we do like your opinions, but for our guests, if you can try to have a question.
Yeah, I was going to say, out of respect for our guests, we do like when you have a question to ask them, but thank you so much for the time that you've given us this morning.
For sure.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime.
Well, yeah, Mike, we always enjoy it. What can we kind of keep our eyes on coming up, maybe over the next few months? Anything that your agency is essentially keeping its eye on?
With the Haynesville Shale, and that's very important to our state, so I always watch that natural gas price. They've remained busy through sub $3 gas for many, many years, and they're finally at a place where they can be profitable and invest more in our state. So I'm watching that price of natural gas, and I hope it remains around where it is.
Sounds good. Mike Moncla, president of the Louisiana Oil and Gas Association. We always appreciate your time. Thank you so much for being with us here today.
Y'all have a great day.
All right. Thanks, Mike.
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. We got to take a break, and we'll come back with more TalkBack.